Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting for Tuesday, December 13th, 2023. As we begin, I have a land acknowledgement. The Niagara region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Thank you. Our first agenda item, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we have approval of the agenda. I have a resolution to approve the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder that the June 13th agenda be, so moved by, there's only one spot on here.
Oh, sorry. The new procedure doesn't require a seconder.
Okay, okay, so I'll just put Sarah.
Yeah.
All in favor? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is a closed session. I have a resolution that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee meet in closed section under Section 239, 3.11 of the Municipal Act, where a meeting is held for the purpose of education or training the members, specifically regarding orientation, education, and training sessions, including information pertaining to the Ontario Heritage Act. I need a mover for that. All in favor? It's carried. So we are in closed session. Okay, I have a resolution that the information provided in the workshop be received. I need a mover. I think I saw Member Freeman's hand go up there, so moved by Member Freeman that the information provided in the workshop be received. All in favor? That's carried. Next, we have an election of a chair and vice chair. So, do we have somebody that would like to put their name forward as chair, or anybody who'd like to put somebody else's name forward as chair? Member Nixon, I think I was going to nominate you, so if you're putting unless you're putting somebody else's name forward, I'm going to nominate Sarah. Is there anybody else that would like to put their name forward as chair of the committee? Okay, so since there's only one name, that makes it easy. Resolve that Sarah Nixon be appointed as chair of the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee. I need a mover for that. I got Member Freeman. All in favor of Sarah Nixon as the chair of the Grimsby Advisory Committee? That is carried. Congratulations, Sarah, and I will happily step down and let you, so you do have to do the appointment of a vice chair. So if you want to switch seats, or I don't know if you want to stay in your seat for tonight, it doesn't matter to me. I think you're probably better off moving over. Yeah, here.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so now it's to elect the vice chair of the committee. Do we have any nominations, I guess?
Member Riley's not here, so I don't know if he would be willing to do it, but he was a member of the committee before, so his experience, I think Member Freeman would be great as well, but because Member Riley was on the committee before, it might be more appropriate to have somebody with experience on there, not that, if you want to do it.
I agree.
I'm
kind of just getting comfortable.
Yeah, I don't want to put you in a place where you're not comfortable. So I would nominate Member Riley if he's willing to accept it. So I don't know if we have to wait for that, or if we could just put his name forward and congratulate him next meeting.
Through you, the chair, you can appoint him, yeah.
Yes? Yeah. Okay, so can we move then to resolve? I don't know the words yet, everyone.
So you can put his name down there.
Okay, so,
And you put me down as the mover.
okay.
And then we're good to go. You'll get the hang of it.
Oh, gosh, guys.
I'm starting to get the hang of it after all those years, so you'll get the hang of it. You're a lot smarter than I am, so.
Okay, so then resolved that Brian Riley has been appointed as vice chair of the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee. All in favor? Awesome. Thank you.
Some of those voluntold situations.
Yeah. We're excited for Brian. Okay, so the next on the agenda is moving to adopt the town's simplified meeting procedures. So from my understanding, this is things like just having one mover, not a seconder. I think that's mostly it. That's going to at least affect our committee here. So anyone want to move that? Okay, wonderful.
We've already been using it tonight, so probably
Yes.
we should have had a seconder until we adopted that procedure.
Fair enough. Well, hey.
That's my fault. As the former chair, I take responsibility for doing it wrong.
Well, we now have a mover. Thank you, Member Freeman. So resolved then that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee adopt the town's simplified meeting procedures. All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have a verbal update about the Heritage Conservation District. We have Bianca to give us that, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to provide a brief update on the Main Street East Heritage Conservation District study. Following the recent legislative changes through Bill 23, the study has now been updated to come into conformity with the new required prescribed criteria for designation of a district. So the study has now been updated, and a video has been prepared by our consultants, and they will be going over the evaluation, their recommendations, and next steps. And I just wanted to note that the recommendations are in keeping with the recommendations from the last PIC session. The reassessment just further enforce the merit for designation within that corridor. So that video will speak to all of those updates, and that is on our Let's Talk Grimsby page or on our YouTube channel for the town of Grimsby. And the social media posts will be going out with this, and then everyone who's subscribed to our email list during the study, they will receive an e-blast. We've also published it in the newspaper, and every resident or property owner within the study area also received a notice, along with all of our committee members and members of council. So, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have any questions about that update? Fantastic. I will say I was able to watch the video and it was really informative, just giving a good, idea of what happened before, what's happening now, how it's going forward. So I would recommend a watch. I think it's only about 10 minutes long. Oh, yes.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to add one thing. So the recommendation report from staff and the presentation from the consultants will be coming to the next Heritage Committee meeting, and then it will go to the July Planning Committee meeting, and then both recommendations from Heritage and Planning Committee will be heard at Council on August 1st, and then the proceeding with the district will be at the discretion of Council. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really exciting to hear it's moving through and that we have dates. That's awesome. All right. So can I get a mover that we have received this heritage? Oh, thank you. The update. Thank you. Okay. So that's Councillor Christangi. All right. I don't know. Am I doing these right?
Yes. Sorry. Through the chair, I also wanted to add, you'll hear it in her resolution, we do need a representative to go back on the heritage, on the study stakeholder list, because a member that was on it previously is no longer on the committee. So we just need to reappoint someone from the Heritage Committee to bring your voice to the stakeholder meetings. So that's what the resolution will include. So you'll be receiving the update that I provided, and then also putting someone forward to be on that stakeholders group.
Okay, awesome, thank you. All right, so we have an opportunity to be a part of the HCD stakeholders group. Is there anyone that's interested in doing that? Yes, wonderful. Amy is put her name forward. That's fantastic. Thank you, Amy Freeman. All right, so with that then, resolved that the verbal update regarding Main Street East be received, and that member Amy Freeman will be appointed as the Heritage Conservation District Studies Stakeholder Group Representative for the Heritage Advisory Committee. Do I have a mover? Is it all in favor? Wonderful, thank you. I'll get this, I promise.
Amy voted against it, is that bad?
Oh my God. Oh gosh.
I just get comfortable too.
All right, so continuing on to a memorandum. Oh, and we're going right to reports, thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to, we have 4 reports to review today, and our first will be a removal request for 93 Fairview Road, and we will have a Garrett present on that.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Staff would just like to note to the committee that all property owners have been given notice of the proposed designations of their properties, or upcoming designations. Staff are working collectively with property owners to address any questions or concerns they may have. We would like to thank the Grimsby Historical Society and community members for their contributions towards the preservation of these buildings. Now I'll get into the register removal request for 93 Fairview Road. On May 2nd, 2022, the property at 93 Fairview Road was added to the Municipal Heritage Register, along with over 130 other properties, as a part of a town-wide initiative that proactively ensured the retention of invaluable resources throughout the town. The property at 93 Fairview Road was added to this list as it was identified as one of the earlier buildings constructed before the surrounding co-op neighborhood. The property owners have submitted a complete register removal request for the property. The homeowners do not intend to demolish the structure, but do not wish to be included on the register. Staff inspected the exterior of the historic dwelling and found that the original foundations were poured concrete and likely dated back to the 20th century. The exterior walls of the structure are masonry that has been covered in an early lime plaster rendering, which is now painted. Over time, the dwelling has evolved significantly. These changes include a large modern rear addition and a modern attached garage. The architectural style of the dwelling at 93 Fairview Road can be described as a bungalow with craftsman-style elements. Key identifying features that indicate the craftsman style include the long and linear form of the building, hipped roofs, porch with square wooden columns, and the window groupings. Staff have conducted a comprehensive review against the Ontario Regulation 906. It has been evaluated that the structure at 93 Fairview Road does not meet 2 or more of the criteria for designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. In summary, staff recommend that the dwelling at 93 Fairview Road be removed from the Municipal Heritage Register, as the exhaustive review has concluded that the property does not meet the criteria for designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Garrett. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. I think I was thinking about this. I do respect the homeowner's wishes, but it's kind of like a reminder of why education in the community is so important, I do wonder if they know what's all involved in the register and designations, and if there's a way that, as a committee, we can be more proactive in creating that outreach and that engagement with the community so that we're all aware about what these terminology means. But, okay, thank you. Okay, so... All right, so I will read the resolution that's in front of me here. Resolved that report GH 2312 register removal request for 93 Fairview Road be received, and that the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that the dwelling at 93 Fairview Road be removed from the Municipal Heritage Register under Section 27 of the Ontario Heritage Act as a property that the council believes to be of cultural heritage significance, as it does not meet 2 or more of the Ontario Regulation 906 criteria for designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. Do I have a mover? Wonderful, thank you, Councillor DeFlavio. All right, and all in favor? Wonderful, thank you. Next up, we have a designation research report for 417 Main Street West. And again, I'll hand this over to Garrett for the report.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Staff recommend that the property at 417 Main Street West be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Staff have concluded that the property has met 6 out of 9 prescribed criteria of the Ontario Regulation 906. The property meets the criteria for design and physical value because the brick house at 417 Main Street West is representative of the Queen Anne style typical of the 1880s to the 1910s. The defining building materials include the smooth red brick with inset brick panels, stone water table banding with stone sills and lintels, wooden fish scale shingles, and stained glass transoms. The large Queen Anne structure would have been custom designed by an architect at the time of construction. The property meets the criteria for historical and associative value because 417 Main Street West has direct associations with important figures in Grimsby's past, such as the Beamer family, the Hagar family, the Hawk family, and the Farmerettes. Louis L. Hagar constructed the Queen Anne residence in 1887, which he named Clavelli. The name Clavelli is derived from the Clavelli village on the east side of Devon in the United Kingdom. The property meets the criteria for contextual value because this heritage dwelling visually illustrates the wealth and prosperity within the town during the height of the tender fruit industry. The large Queen Anne structure remains largely unchanged on the facade fronting Main Street West, and the property surrounding the Queen Anne structure still maintains its historic use as a tender fruit farming and other agricultural uses. The property is located on a curve of Main Street West, which acts as a landmark while traveling down Highway 8. A Grimsby newspaper article from March 1921 states the bend in the road was referred to as Hagar's Curve. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest and significant findings, staff recommend that the property at 417 Main Street West be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Flavio.
Mine's more of a comment. Thank you for the great report. Having grown up right across the street from this house and my family owned the business right next door to it for 28 years, I can't believe it's taken us this long to put this on, to designate this house. I think because it had been divided into apartments and things like that over the years, that was part of the issue. But yeah, this is a no-brainer. The thing I was going to say is I'd like to see that bend get renamed Hagar's Curve. Like over the years there have been a lot of accidents at that bend, so I'd love to see some signage that said Hagar's Curve coming up, or whatever we want to call it, to let people know, because there's, it's interesting that the article that you mentioned from 1921 mentioned it was the carrying of alcohol, but alcohol has been involved in a lot of accidents at that bend. You know, having worked in the store there for decades, there were many times where I came out and there were cars that went straight instead of going around the bend. Thankfully, nobody ever died there, but there have been those posts at the curve have been knocked over numerous times. There's a lady that sells purses there now, and every time I see her there, I'm concerned for her well-being, because I know how many cars have gone into that spot where she puts her purses for sale on weekends, and I want to stop, but it's none of my business, but it's not a safe place to be, I know. But it's a great report and such an important property. I was really sad to see a few years ago during a windstorm, some of the evergreens that were probably 100+ years old in front of this property came down because they have such shallow roots. I don't know, you guys were all too young to know this, but they came over and it was tragic because these were some beautiful, probably century-old trees that really made the property, they enhanced the property, but yeah, this is something we definitely need to do, and properties like this are exactly the reason why we're doing this. So thank you for your report. I really appreciated it. And it's always nice to learn new stuff about stuff that I've grown up around and I've gone by 10 times a day for my entire life, and there were things that I learned that I didn't know. So I wish that we had more plaques and more, I don't know if we could do it with QR codes or do it with just a Google Map overlay or something where, because we used to have a little brochure that we gave away when there were, 12 properties and people actually took brochures, but nobody actually picks up a brochure anymore. Very few people do anyway. But if there was something that we could do as a Google Map overlay or something where people could say, these are the heritage properties in Grimsby, and then when you click on it, some information comes up, something for a future student to do maybe, or something like that, but it would be a really neat feature for people to understand more about. These reports could very easily just be uploaded into a Google map as a link and make it really easy for people to understand Grimsby's heritage that way. So that's the only thing I wanted to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much for your comments, and Member Freeman.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I was actually going to just say something similar to what you were saying in terms of, Bianca and I had the conversation a little bit before, with these historic landmarks, it is a defining property. I mean, even prior to me as a resident of Grimsby, and as a child, I remember it. And I just think, whether we put the signage up and create a map for these ones that have extreme historical significance, and all the connections from Beamer to the Hager family to the Pettits to everything, to really just bring that to the forefront, especially for the children, whether that even be through community events in the summertime, scavenger hunts, find the landmark, something. There's opportunity for us to do it in an affordable way and get really creative with it, and build on it over the course of the years as we grow that. So that's what I was actually thinking myself when I was reading this, is just how we need to educate more people in the town. So I just wanted to add to that.
Thank you, and Councilor DeFabio.
The part of the report that, and we've had this wording several times that talks about the prosperity of the fruit industry over the years, but this is one of those homes, there are a few along that stretch there that really show what the fruit industry was for Grimsby at the time. And this is one of those homes where you look at it and go, that was a single-family home, and it was from selling peaches. Because I grew up on a farm, and I can tell you, we weren't building giant houses from the farms by the time I was a kid. But yeah, these epic homes that they built, the incredible castle-like homes along Main Street that would never be replicated again today. I'm really happy that we're able to preserve them this way, so thank you.
Thank you. I can also echo the idea of public education to kind of appreciate the history, right? And I love the idea of doing a map or maybe something else that kind of gets the information out there in an interactive way and really gets people engaging in the past. I was also quite struck with the Hager's curve as someone who, I know the curve. I didn't realize it had a name that stretches back decades. And so it's kind of interesting and a good reminder that the heritage we're preserving isn't just these built structures, but it's also these spaces and landscapes that also kind of stretch past in time as well. And would be kind of neat to put a plaque or something, or name the curve in some way, and that might even draw attention to the dangers of the curve.
Hager School was still open when I was a kid. I was.
And again, with Hager School, am I correct? Is that also designated or no?
Yeah.
That is designated, I believe. It's on the register?
No,
Okay.
it's, the Hager School is mentioned. Hager School is the Bible League of Canada. So that's a register, that's a designated. I thought when they did the renovation, we designated it.
Some kind of easement you were going to put on, but then they didn't end up doing it. It was before my time, but I know that it didn't get designated.
Okay.
I'll look into it, but.
Okay. Is Walter still on? Because he could probably answer it. But. Walter, didn't we designate Hagar? Through you, Chair, I apologize.
I don't believe Hagar has been designated, no. There was an NEC development permit for the reuse. It was part of the site plan application process. There was a restoration of the front porch. As you recall, there was a large front enclosure from the previous use, and then the current use is the current user or the current owner ended up restoring the front porch of Hagar School, but I don't believe it's been designated. If memory serves me.
I believe we just got confirmation that it has not been designated. I only bring up Hager School, which is now the Bible School,
Yeah.
Bible League of Canada, to bring attention to how, yeah, these corridors are interconnected with the curve, with the house that we are putting forward for designation, and then the school as well. So it's interesting to see those interconnectedness. But okay, let's move on then. I have this motion in front of me. Resolved that 417 Main Street West be designated under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that a notice of intention to designate be issued in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. Do I have a mover for 417 Main Street West? Yes, we have Amy. Thank you. And all in favor? Wonderful, thanks. Okay, next on the list, we have another designation research report for 470 Main Street West, and we will have Joanna for this report.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Sorry, I had a microphone malfunction. I couldn't see the red light, so I was just hoping it was on. Staff recommend that the property at 470 Main Street West be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Staff have concluded that the property has met 5 out of 9 prescribed criteria of the Ontario Regulation 906. The property meets the criteria for design and physical value because 470 Main Street West is a 2-story house built in the Georgian architectural style. The property owner, Sylvester Doran, was a stonemason and through his extensive experience constructed his family home using materials found within the property's landscape. The building material was a cut rubble stone that was unearthed by the property owners from the surrounding property. The property meets the criteria for historical and associative values because the property has direct associations with Benjamin Wilcox, one of the first United Emperor Loyalists to settle within the town, as well as the Doran family. Benjamin Wilcox and his wife Elsie came to Canada from New Jersey in 1787. Benjamin immediately became heavily involved in community affairs after settling. Sylvester Doran and his wife Elizabeth came to Canada in 1821 from Carlow, Ireland. Sylvester built his home in 1821 from the rubble stone found in the surrounding fields. When Sylvester and Elizabeth settled in Grimsby, they were the first Irish Roman Catholics. Sylvester was instrumental in the erection of the first Roman Catholic church in Grimsby, located on Patton Street. James Doran inherited his father's land and sold it in 1884. James, like his father, was heavily active within the town council and the community. He served as a reeve twice within the village and opened Doran Avenue. The property meets the criteria for contextual values because 470 Main Street West is one of the oldest surviving buildings between Hunter Road and Oaks Road North. The building would have been accompanied by a considerable amount of farmland at the time of construction. Sections have been parceled off of the lot, but the immediate surroundings still maintain the historic value of agricultural farming. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest and significant findings, staff recommend that the property at 470 Main Street West be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this. Anyone have any questions? Comments? I have one question out of curiosity. When we mentioned the monument to Sylvester, you say it still stands? I'm interested in knowing where that might be. It's on Patton Street, I guess where the old Catholic church was. I think I have it on page 18, but the second paragraph on page 18.
Okay. So it does say that, yeah, so the monument does stand in the churchyard on Patton Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
That churchyard.
There's a cemetery there.
It's part of the-
Okay.
When the people restored the house, when the current owners of the church, which is now a home, took over the property from it was the Knights of Columbus that owned the property, they had to become, they had to get their license to maintain a cemetery because it was part of the property. There was a cemetery on site, so they've got a separate cemetery on their home property because it was there as part of the old Catholic Church. It's actually an interesting story. It was quite run down when they took it over and did a great job of restoring it, so it might be something to consider for future designations, but it's on the list. I know it's on the list for sure, but but yeah, so there's an actual cemetery on that site, which is, I didn't realize that these people were associated with that until today, but yeah, that's pretty cool. I do know I can nerd out on the other stuff because I was part of that process, but I didn't know this stuff.
That's really, really interesting. Yes, I'd love to see something more on that in the future.
A cemetery keeper or whatever, like they had to get permission to.
Yeah, to get special permission to have a cemetery on your site when you're not at all in that business. That's really interesting. Thank you. And thanks for bringing light to that in the report. And also just, again, like another really great example of a built heritage property on that corridor. And I didn't realize it was built so early in the 1830s. I usually associate that with, the Nellis Manor downtown, for example, but the fact that there's something very similar in style and age on that part of town is really interesting. So I'm excited to see this being put forward for designation. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, awesome. So I have my resolution here. Resolved that 470 Main Street West be designated under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that a notice of intention to designate be issued in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. Do I have a mover? Wonderful. To Councillor Cristangi. And all in favor? Great, thank you. And last up on our reports this evening is a designation research report for 421 Elizabeth Street. And I'll hand this over to Joanna once again.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Staff recommend that the property of 421 Elizabeth Street be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Staff have concluded that the property has met 5 out of 9 prescribed criteria of the Ontario Regulation 906. The property meets the criteria for design and physical value because the structure at 421 Elizabeth Street is a representative example of the Ontario Gothic farmhouse style. The features unique to the building are the brick bay window on the main floor, the front porch with the second floor balcony, and the decorative barge board and scroll work. The property meets the criteria for historical and associative values because the property of 421 Elizabeth Street is associated with the Whitaker and Farrell families. The Whitaker family built and ran one of the most successful and well-known fruit farms within the area. The farm operated from the 1840s until 1913. The Farrell family ran a basket factory on Elm Street and were members of the Canadian Wood Products Co. 421 Elizabeth Street was built by Irish stonemason Patrick Farrell. His work can be found throughout Grimsby, and the good condition of surviving structures is a testament to the quality of Patrick's work. The property meets the criteria for contextual values because 421 Elizabeth Street maintains the rural atmosphere that strongly represents the former agricultural use prior to the construction of the surrounding subdivisions. Historically, the Whitaker family owned a large parcel bought from Adolphus Nels, farming various types of fruit from the 1840s until 1913. William Whitaker created a steady income source through farming the land. He built a farm that was sustainable through generations, allowing his sons to inherit a working farm. 421 Elizabeth Street is the oldest surviving structure in the immediate area. Based on the assessment of cultural heritage value or interest and significant findings, staff recommend that the property of 421 Elizabeth Street be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, great. Awesome work. Again, really interesting. I grew up in that neighborhood and I've always wondered about that house, especially because it's now surrounded by, a lot of newer homes. So it's really great to hear a little bit more about the house and the people that lived there and built, Grimsby. Okay, another resolution then. Resolved that 421 Elizabeth Street be designated under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and then a notice of intention to designate be issued in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act. Do I have a mover? Awesome, Amy. So we got member Amy Freeman. And all in favor? Wonderful. Okay, that's great. We're good. Okay, does anyone on the committee have any announcements we'd like to make? Okay, so is that it then? All right, so, we have one, yes?
I have a question. I don't know if there's new business on here or not. I was hoping we'd have a brief discussion about, we're not supposed to talk about what happened in closed session, but we've talked about in the past the way that staff is examining which houses are important, like triaging priority. While I agree, and I was happy about all the reports that we had tonight, in my opinion, 2 out of 3 of those are not ones that I see as being in danger because they're outside the greenbelt and, not really developable land from an instantly developable land perspective. While they're very important from a historical and heritage perspective, I just want to emphasize that homes on large parcels of land within the urban area should be our priority when it comes to triaging and creating our list of which ones are important to us, in my opinion. And also, I wanted to bring up again the idea of the other incentives that we're going to put in place for heritage owners and see where that stands, if there's been any progress on that, any discussion of that among staff. Because I do think that some sort of incentive for heritage homeowners, whether it's a tax rebate or whatever we decide as a council in the end, is important because we are designating a lot of homes and we have heard issues. As much as people want to pretend that there's no difference between having a heritage home and not, we have heard issues, especially related to insurance, repeatedly, and I've seen stuff from National Heritage Trust that says the same thing, that heritage is an issue that insurance is an issue for heritage homeowners. So I want to do everything possible to help people who have had this responsibility thrust upon them. I know that people buy homes, but when you buy a home and then it's designated after you buy it, it's different than buying a home that's already designated. So I want to do whatever we can, whatever possible to help the homeowners out. So I'm just asking, if there's been any progress on that, or if we have a kind of a timeline to going forward for that. Thank you, Chair. Through you.
Through you, the chair. I just want to touch on a couple things. So the notion about the insurance. So we've done a lot of work internally to kind of get some toolkits developed for homeowners. And I just wanted to be clear that with all of these heritage homeowners, we've provided them with 2 additional notices outside of the Heritage Act. And we've also provided opportunities for them to come in and talk about this whole process. And a lot of them have taken us up on that offer. And we've sat with them for upwards of an hour and a half, just going through all of these things and talking through all of this process, insurance, property value. These are all things we discuss. We talk about the designation bylaw, make sure they're comfortable with the attributes being protected. We talk about the future of the sites. So we're taking a lot of time to talk with the homeowners, and they're very much involved with this process. So I just wanted to provide that as well. And they're also provided these research reports a month in advance of the heritage meetings, just so that they can come in and ask us questions. So there's a lot of communication happening, and a lot of homeowners are taking us up on that offer. And a lot of them are thanking us because this is a priority to them as well. So we've received very positive reaction from 90% of the homeowners. And all these things are things we're talking about. So I just want to note that for insurance, we're definitely not leaving them high and dry after this. We're working with them quite diligently. And then I want to talk about priority. If the committee has properties in mind, please send them to us. We're just trying to be strategic and doing them as groupings as we move. We don't want to miss any, and we know our Main Street corridor is very significant. And we feel any of those buildings lost on that corridor will leave a huge gap in the character of that corridor. And so, yes, I know there will be development pressures, but it's also important to note that if a demolition permit came in for any of those houses on Main Street West, we wouldn't have enough time to get a notice of intention to designate. So I think, yeah, we're fearful for both instances. And that's just such an important corridor. And so that's kind of why we've prioritized that area. But I agree, there's so many buildings that need to be prioritized. So if there's any you can think of, we appreciate the support that way. And we will include those as priorities. And I think we're also like making banks of each family name so that when we're seeing them on the land deeds, we can already grab them and use them in other ones. So we're getting momentum as we continue down. But please do share those. And then for the tax incentives, we've started discussions with finance. So that's underway and we're hoping to have something come to council soon. But I did want to note, doesn't matter if you were added on the list after council approves it, you will automatically get it, even if you've been on it for years. So every single designated site will get this tax incentive if it's approved by council. And then in addition to that, we still have funding this year for the grant for the heritage restoration and then for downtown facade improvement. So if anyone is interested, we encourage them to reach out to us and we're here to support them. There is a couple heritage homeowners that are taking advantage of it right now. So I hope that answers all those questions. Thank you.
I want to commend all of you for the reports that you're putting together and for all the work that you're doing on this and that additional time that you're spending with the homeowners because, you know, these are people's most important investment in their lives and we want to make sure that the communication is there. So I really appreciate that you're doing that and thank you and keep up the great work. And I'm going to look through my list and if I have some that I think are really important, just because, you know, it might be something that slips through the cracks or isn't on your radar, I will definitely send them to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And to Councillor Crisangi.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm just going to echo Councillor DeFlavio's words on commending staff on the hard work you guys have been doing. These reports are amazing to read. There's so much research, so much history. It's great. And that the public can access them and learn as well. So you guys are doing fantastic. Thank you for all your hard work. Totally forget what I was going to say now. About the, for the homeowners. I know it was mentioned before about you guys having sort of like a toolkit of people who do repairs and things like that. Is there any way that perhaps we can get that on the website or an easier access so that maybe it can relieve some work off you, but that the public has access to that?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, we're currently actually revamping our heritage page to make it easier for the homeowner. So it'll have like the heritage permit listed and then like recommended heritage professionals. And then there's some additional programs we've started promoting, which is like reaching out to us if you need heritage restoration advice and things like that. So we kind of want to make that web page like the perfect spot for heritage homeowners to go and get all that information. But I really appreciate that feedback and that's definitely something we can include.
Thank you. And Member Friedman.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to, in regards to the overwhelming amount of research that needs to take place and stuff, is the opportunity through their committee or other ways to assist with the researching of the homes for those that are willing and able.
Thank you, through the chair. So for our Heritage Committee, we have a special training on Thursday this week, and we're going to be going over these designation reports and how you find all this information. And then we would love, if the committee wants to help, we would love to take you up on that. And we're happy to support you through the whole process, and like we can meet with you multiple times to go over the reports and make sure you're on the right path. And yeah, happy to have your support there.
I think that from a homeowner's perspective, it must be neat to learn things about your own home. You know, for some people who've lived in these houses for sometimes 30 or 40 years, there are things that you're telling them about their home that they might not, probably didn't even know. So it's just a really cool project, even though it's meant to preserve the heritage of Grimsby. It's also a really neat historical project, and all the things that you're doing will be things that will be here forever. It's information that people will have access to, up-to-date information, and you can fill in if more information comes out, but you're creating a database of information that's going to be here for everybody now forever, which is a really neat thing that you're doing. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to echo what everyone's been saying about how your hard work is definitely very valuable and very significant. And to echo also what Member Friedman was saying about having, the committee members here to help and assist with the efforts going forward. I know we've spoken about it before, but in terms of designating so many properties at such a speed, it doesn't allow for the level of conversation that you would want to have with the community members. And I really commend you for taking the time that you are, knowing all of that's on your plate right now. You're still taking the time to reach out and to have those conversations. And if the committee, I think we have a really important role of doing that sort of outreach in the community more broadly as well, so that when a heritage homeowner gets a notice or, connects with you, they hopefully through us will have a little bit of an understanding already about why we're doing what we're doing and the importance of that work. So I hope going forward this term, the committee is able to be a little bit more proactive in educating the public about why we're doing this work. So thank you. Anything else? Okay, and so with that, this committee meeting's concluded. Is that it? Thank you, everyone.